Imagine moving into a new apartment and realizing it's an exact copy of your old life, down to your childhood photo, your coffee mug, the perfume you used to wear, and you didn't put any of it there. I thought moving to LA would feel like stepping into sunlight after being underwater too long. I had left everything behind: my old apartment, my job, my ex, the version of me who stayed too quiet too long. I told myself this was a beginning, the kind where I finally breathe again. The listing I found online looked perfect, affordable, which already felt like a miracle. Sunlit, close to work. The photo showed neutral, cozy furniture, clean wooden floors, a cute balcony with plants. I signed the lease before I even saw it. I just needed to go anywhere, to not stay in the city where he lived, where every corner felt like his memory breathing down my neck. The key was left in an envelope under the mat. I remember laughing about that. So casual, so trusting. LA didn't strike me as the leave the key outside kind of place, but I didn't question it. I was tired, traveling with two suitcases that felt heavier than they were. I turned the key, opened the door, exhaled, and for a second everything felt okay. Then I stepped inside, and my body froze. The air smelled the same as my old place, that soft lavender and something woody underneath. The same exact couch, the same small dent in the left cushion where I always sat, the same rug with the tiny wine stain near the corner, the same framed print of the ocean on the wall. Not similar, the same. I blinked so many times trying to convince myself I was wrong, that this was just common decor taste, that I was tired and projecting. But when I walked to the kitchen, my breath caught in my throat. There it was, the chipped white mug with the little yellow sun printed on it, the one I got at a thrift shop when I first moved out at 19. The chip on the handle from when I dropped it during finals week. I knew that cup. I had lived with that cup. I had cried into that cup. My hands trembled. Something inside me whispered run, but my feet moved further in, like I was being pulled, drawn. I walked into the bedroom. The bedspread was the same pattern, the nightstand, the diffuser, the tiny lamp with the crooked shade, and on the nightstand sat a framed photo. Me, laughing, and him, his arm around me, taken back when things were still soft and bright. I hadn't seen that picture in months. I thought I threw it out. I sat on the edge of the bed and the room swayed. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't random. Someone made this. For me. What would your first reaction be if your new apartment looked exactly like your old one? I didn't touch anything for a while. I just sat there on the edge of that bed with the photograph staring back at me, my own face smiling up like I was mocking myself from the past. My heart beat so slow and heavy I could feel it in my teeth. I kept trying to rationalize, because that is what I do. That is what I have always done. I try to make things make sense even when they clearly don't. Maybe the landlord bought secondhand furniture. Maybe someone had copied my old decor from pictures online. Maybe the photo was just, no, number. I had thrown that photo away. I had torn it once. The rip in the corner was still there. My hands felt numb when I picked it up. The frame was wooden. Same scratches along the top edge where I once dropped it moving apartments. The back was sealed with the same cheap tape I used because I didn't have proper frame tabs at the time. This was mine. This was from my old life. I didn't know how, but it was. I moved room to room, slowly, carefully, like I didn't want to wake something that might be sleeping. The bookshelf held all the same books, same order. Even the little receipts I used as bookmarks were still tucked between pages. My hair tie was still looped around the doorknob the way I always left one in case I needed it. My lavender blanket, the one I knitted in college, sat draped over the sofa in the same messy fold I always made without thinking. Every detail felt like someone had studied me, memorized me, rebuilt me. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. How's the new place? I stared at the screen. For a long time. My mouth was dry. My hands shook slightly. The message wasn't threatening. It wasn't dramatic. It was casual, familiar. In that way, someone speaks when they know you, really know you, when they are used to your life being something they have access to. But I didn't answer. I locked the phone, turned it face down. My heart kept saying his name, but my mind wouldn't let me form it. It couldn't be him. It had been months. We hadn't spoken, not since the last fight, the one that left me shaking for hours, the one that made me pack up and leave before I convinced myself to stay again, the one where he said softly that I was nothing without him, not angrily, not loudly, just like it was a fact. And maybe the softness scared me more than if he had screamed. I looked at the front door, the keyhole, the windows. I started to feel like the walls were too close, like the air wasn't moving, like the apartment was breathing with me, or for me. Then the message came again. I knew you'd come back. I didn't even type anything. I just dropped the phone on the coffee table and backed away. And then I noticed something I hadn't before. There were no mirrors in the apartment, not a single one. If you'd been me in that moment, what would you do first? Call someone? Leave immediately? Or search for more clues? The absence of mirrors didn't hit me all at once. It settled in slowly, like a whisper I almost didn't hear, but once I noticed, it became impossible to ignore. Every place a mirror should be was simply blank. The bathroom had a smooth wall where the mirror usually hangs. The hallway, where I would have checked myself before leaving, had only a shadow of nail holes, like something had once been there and was removed carefully, intentionally. I felt suddenly exposed in a way I couldn't explain, like seeing my own reflection would have confirmed something terrible, or maybe like someone didn't want me to be seen. I tried to breathe, but the air felt too thick again. I went to the kitchen and ran the cold water. I needed something real, something physical. I splashed my face, gripping the counter. The marble was the same faintly cracked one I used to complain about. I remember telling him once that the crack looked like a crooked smile. He laughed and said, I always saw faces in things, that I was dramatic, emotional, always too much. His voice echoed in my head now, softer than memory should allow. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't not look. Did you see it yet? Just those words, nothing else. I stared at the message, heart pounding, then looked around the kitchen. See what? There was nothing new here. Just the mug, the fridge magnet shaped like a lemon that we bought on vacation, the old cutting board with a burn mark from when he left it too close to the stove. Everything old, everything familiar, everything wrong. Then the phone buzzed again. In the living room, under the blanket. My stomach tightened. The lavender blanket, the one I had been so comforted by just minutes earlier. Now it felt tainted, like touching it would connect me to him somehow, but But I walked toward it anyway, slowly, one step at a time. Bare feet on the rug I used to vacuum while humming that stupid song he always liked. The blanket was folded exactly the way I always folded it when I watched TV. I reached out and lifted it, hands trembling, and I saw a small wooden box underneath. Dark walnut, smooth, no dust, like it had been placed there recently. I sat on the floor. The apartment was quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful, more like waiting, holding its breath. When I opened the box, I didn't gasp. My body went still instead, completely still. Inside were little scraps of paper, notes, ones I had written years ago, some torn from journals, some scribbled on grocery receipts, some I barely remembered writing. Things like, "Don't forget to breathe today. You're trying, that counts." I miss when love felt easy. Maybe someday I'll leave. I felt something cold settle behind my ribs. He had kept them, all of them, even the ones I threw away, especially those. And then I remembered something I wish I hadn't. He once told me softly, almost affectionately, "Nothing you leave is ever really gone." I closed the box, very slowly, like it was dangerous. Maybe it was. Why do you think there were no mirrors in the apartment? To keep me from seeing myself? Or to keep me from seeing someone else? I didn't sleep that first night. I didn't even lie down. I sat on the couch with the wooden box closed beside me like it might open on its own if I stopped looking. My phone stayed face down on the table. I didn't want to see another message. I didn't want to know what else he was ready to show me. The apartment was too quiet. Not the peaceful sort of quiet, just the kind that makes you aware of how alone you are, how small. The kind of quiet where every tiny noise feels like it means something, and there were noises, soft ones at first. A faint creak along the wall near the hallway, the soft hum of the refrigerator, a distant tapping sound like something metal shifting, but then I heard something else, a low clicking sound, very slow, very faint, like someone tapping the wall with just their fingernail, tapping, waiting, listening. I held my breath to see if it would stop. It didn't. I stood up, slowly. The rug felt cold under my feet even though it shouldn't have. I walked down the hall. The tapping sound grew softer as I got closer, like whoever was doing it knew I was approaching, or didn't want to be heard. My hand slid along the wall. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I'd feel something. A vibration, a pulse, something alive. But the wall was still, solid. Nothing. I turned to walk back, and something shifted in the corner of my eye. The photo of us on the nightstand had moved. It was angled differently, not a lot, just slightly turned toward the door like it was watching me. I felt cold spread across my skin, a slow wave that didn't stop at the surface. I stared at the frame. I hadn't touched it, I was sure. I would have remembered. I took one step toward it, then froze. My phone lit up. "You used to sleep on the left side, you remember?" No greeting, no name, just that. The left side of the bed, my side, the one closest to the window. He used to sleep on the right. He said it made him feel safest, like he could watch the door just in case. I didn't respond. I didn't breathe. Then another message came. "You can sleep. I'm here." I felt the room tilt slightly, like gravity had changed. Not "I'm coming," not "I'll see you," but "I'm here." I forced myself to look around the room slowly. The windows were locked, the closet door closed, the front door deadbolted. But I didn't feel alone, not even for a second. I felt watched, not by a camera, not by technology, by presence, by memory that had been made physical. I backed out of the bedroom and closed the door. The tapping in the hallway started again, soft, patient. I wrapped myself in the lavender blanket even though I no longer wanted to touch it. I sat back on the couch. I pulled my knees to my chest. I stared at the door, and I whispered out loud just to hear my own voice. This is real. Saying it didn't help. The tapping continued, slowly, steadily, as if responding. If you were me right now, would you call the police or leave immediately or stay and try to understand what's happening? I didn't call the police. I should have. Any logical person would have, but logic didn't feel like something I had anymore. The apartment had taken it from me, or maybe the fear had, but I stayed because part of me wanted answers. I needed to know whether this was something explainable or whether my past had finally reached out and wrapped itself around my throat. The tapping stopped sometime near dawn, just faded away like it had never been there. I sat on the couch watching the light shift across the room. Morning here looked the same as morning in my old place. Soft amber sunlight stretching across the rug, catching the side of the bookshelf, reflecting warm gold on the floors. It should have been comforting. It felt violating. I finally stood up and forced myself to move through the apartment slowly. I needed to see if anything else had changed. I went to the bedroom first. The air felt still, too still, like the room was pretending to sleep. The photo on the nightstand was exactly where it had been when I left it, but the blanket on the bed, had it been folded before? I couldn't remember. I stared at it too long, trying to be sure, trying to be rational. My phone buzzed again, not a text this time, a voicemail notification. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard it ring. I didn't want to press play, but my hand did it anyway. There was silence at first, then a faint breath, slow, controlled, familiar, then a whisper. "Don't leave again." My whole body flushed cold. I didn't need to hear more. I knew the voice. I knew the exact way his breath sounded when he spoke softly, how close he held the phone to his mouth, how he spoke like his words were meant to sink in and stay somewhere inside you where air couldn't reach. I ended the voicemail. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Then I heard it, the front door lock, a soft metal click, not opening, just tested, as if someone was checking the lock from the outside, making sure. I froze in the hallway. The handle didn't turn, the door didn't move, but the certainty hit me all at once. Someone else had a key, someone who had been inside already, someone who had placed every object in this apartment exactly the way I left it months ago, someone who knew where I kept things, how I folded blankets, which side of the bed I slept on, what I looked like when I laughed, what I looked like when I cried, someone who believed I belonged here, with him. I backed away from the door, slowly, my breathing shallow, my pulse loud in my ears. The apartment didn't feel like a place anymore. It felt like a memory given walls, a memory that didn't want to let me go. I whispered, barely audible, "You're not here. You're not here." But the tapping began again, this time from inside the bedroom wall. What's more frightening to you, someone watching you or someone remembering you? I don't know how long I stood there listening. The tapping was slow and steady, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me. I told myself over and over that it was the pipes, or the building settling, or something rational, but it wasn't. I knew it wasn't. There was intention in the rhythm. Awareness. It wasn't noise. It was communication. I forced myself to walk toward the bedroom again. My feet felt heavy, like each step had to be decided twice. The hallway seemed longer now, stretched somehow, like the apartment was shifting around me. When I stepped into the bedroom, the tapping stopped instantly, as if it had been waiting for me to arrive. The room felt different. I couldn't explain how. It was like the air had weight, like I had interrupted something. The bed looked untouched, too perfect. The photo on the nightstand faced the bed now, not the doorway. Like someone had turned it so I would see it from the pillow. A memory rose without permission. A night months ago in my real old apartment. He had stood just inside the doorway while I sat on the bed, crying quietly because I didn't want him to hear how much it hurt. He didn't come to comfort me. He didn't speak. He just watched me, with this expression that was almost tender, almost loving, but wrong. Like he wasn't watching me cry. He was watching himself own the moment. Like my sadness was his accomplishment. That same feeling settled in my chest now. Watched, not comforted, possessed. I took one step backward, and my heel hit something. A small scrap of paper on the floor, folded once, deliberate. My heart pounded. I leaned down slowly and picked it up. My name was written on the outside in his handwriting. Careful, clean. The handwriting of someone who practices, who wants everything to look just right. I unfolded it. You used to sleep with your hand under your cheek, like a child. You always looked safest that way. I couldn't breathe. The room swayed. The walls felt too close. Every part of me screamed to run. But my body didn't move. I stood there holding that paper like it was a live thing that could bite. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The closet door. It was open just a few inches. Just enough to be intentional. I had closed it that morning. I remembered closing it. I remembered the sound of it latching. Now it was open. I stared at that small gap. The darkness inside it felt like a mouth. Quiet. Waiting. I didn't go near it. I couldn't. I walked backward out of the bedroom, keeping my eyes on the closet door the whole time. The hallway felt colder now. The apartment no longer felt lived in. It felt inhabited, but not by me. I sat on the couch again. I wrapped my arms around myself. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just felt a heavy, terrible stillness, like prey that knows it has already been caught. My phone buzzed. One message. You're remembering now. Which is more terrifying in this moment? The closet or the tapping walls or the messages? I didn't move for a long time. I just sat there with the message glowing on my screen and the apartment silent around me. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full. A presence sitting just outside my awareness, watching, waiting, breathing with me. I had to leave. I finally understood that. The need wasn't panic this time, it was clarity. A still, quiet truth rising through my chest like a buoy finally breaking the surface. I stood up slowly, too slowly, like I was afraid that sudden movement would draw attention. From the walls, from the closet, from him. I didn't pack. I didn't take anything. Everything in that apartment may have been mine once, but now it belonged to something else, something that wanted me to fit into it again. Exactly as before. I grabbed only my phone and keys. The lavender blanket slipped off the couch onto the floor as I passed it. I didn't look back. The hallway outside was narrow and dim. I walked quickly, not running, but not casual either. The elevator felt too slow, too enclosed, so I took the stairs. 4 flights down. My heartbeat matched my footsteps. I felt watched the whole time. Not by someone following behind me, but by the building itself. Like the stairwell had eyes. When I finally pushed open the front door to the street, air rushed into my lungs so suddenly it almost hurt. Sunlight hit my face. Cars moved. People walked. Life was happening. Normal life. I stood on the sidewalk shaking and didn't even realize it at first. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked, block after block. My legs carried me like they had made the decision without me. And that's when I saw her. An older woman sitting on the stoop of the building across the street. Thin, pale, wearing a faded sweater too warm for the weather. She was watching me. Not casually, not curiously, with recognition. When our eyes met, she stood up and crossed the street without hesitation. Her movements were small and measured, as if she didn't want to startle me. You moved into 4B, she said. Not a question, a statement. I swallowed. Yes, her eyes softened with something that wasn't sympathy, more like warning that had gone unheeded for too long. Did he ever tell you he was planning it? The world tilted. My blood went cold. She knew. My voice came out barely audible. Planning what? She exhaled slowly. The apartment. The copy. He talked about it. To anyone who would listen, but no one thought he'd actually do it. He said he was rebuilding your life, the life you were supposed to have. She paused. He said you just forgot who you were supposed to be. I felt something deep inside me recoil. How do you know him? I whispered. She looked down at her hands. Her voice lowered. I used to live there. Before you, my heart stuttered. Number, that meant, but he built it for you. She added softly. Only you. The air around us seemed to bend. I steadied myself. How did you get out? She looked up at me then. Right into me. I didn't, she said. And then she turned and walked away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with the sudden understanding that leaving the apartment had not meant I left him. He had planned far beyond that. He had planned everything. What do you think the neighbor meant by I didn't? Was she warning me or something else? I stood there for a long time after she left. The street noise blurred into something distant, like I was underwater again. Her words echoed and echoed, circling in my head with slow, heavy gravity. I didn't. Not I couldn't. Not I barely did. Just I didn't. Like escape to her wasn't survival. Or maybe survival meant something different to her now. Something less like living and more like existing in the shadow of something you can't name. I didn't want to go back to the apartment. Every cell in me rebelled at the idea, but where would I go? I didn't know anyone here. I didn't have friends yet. Work didn't start for another week. My bank account was already thin. Hotels were expensive. I had no proof of anything that had happened. Just a replica of a life I no longer wanted, waiting for me behind a locked door that was apparently never really locked. My phone buzzed in my hand. Another message. You left your blanket. A chill crawled up my spine. I didn't reply. I didn't move. Cars passed. Someone laughed nearby. A dog barked at nothing, and I stood there holding the phone like it was burning me. Then another message. It's okay. You always come back. The worst part was that a part of me understood that sentence. There was a time when leaving him felt impossible, when the thought of being without him felt like stepping into a void. He had made sure of that, carefully, patiently, quietly, like shaping clay. I didn't realize I was walking until I was already halfway back. The city blurred around me. The building rose ahead like something ancient and waiting. The front door opened too easily. The hallway felt narrower than before. The air smelled faintly of lavender, and faintly of something else under it, something metallic. The apartment door was closed, but the moment I touched the handle, I knew. The temperature of the metal, the faint warmth, someone had been inside while I was gone. I opened the door slowly. The apartment was quiet. So quiet it felt staged, that heavy stillness again. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, not because I wanted to, but because the moment I entered it felt wrong to leave it open, like something outside might see in. The lavender blanket was folded neatly on the couch again. The wooden box was gone. My heart tightened in one slow, crushing squeeze. Then I heard movement. Not loud, not footsteps, just the shift of weight on floorboards. From the bedroom. I didn't call out. I didn't run. I walked down the hallway, slowly, like I was sleepwalking. Like the apartment was guiding me. The bedroom door was open. I stepped inside. He wasn't there, but the closet door was wider now, and inside, hanging neatly, were my clothes. Clothes I hadn't seen in months. Clothes I thought I had donated. Washed, folded, arranged exactly the way I used to. A life reconstructed, not for nostalgia, but for return. Do you think he's in the apartment already? Or watching from somewhere else? I stood in front of the closet staring at the familiar clothes. Dresses I once loved wearing. Sweaters that smelled like autumn. The worn denim jacket he told me was so perfectly you. Seeing them there didn't feel like comfort. It felt like I had been placed in a memory. Like I was a piece of furniture being arranged. A role being rehearsed. A soft creak came from behind me. I turned slowly. The bedroom light flickered once. Not fully off. Just dim enough to blur the corners of the room. The air felt thicker again, pressing against my skin. Then I heard it. My name. Spoken so quietly I almost convinced myself it was my own breath making the sound. But it wasn't. It came from the wall. Not the tapping wall. The opposite one. The one with the nightstand and the photograph. The voice wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. It sounded almost affectionate. Like someone remembering how to say my name the exact way I used to like. I stepped back. Slowly. My calves hit the edge of the bed. I didn't sit. I couldn't. The closet loomed behind me like a mouth. The room felt smaller, the ceiling lower. I could feel the presence now. Not in the room, not physically, but threaded through every object. The blanket, the photograph, the chipped mug, the clothes. He had recreated the world where he owned my breath. My phone buzzed. I didn't look. The voice in the wall spoke again. This time clearer. You remember now, don't you? I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat felt sealed. My pulse thundered through me. I didn't blink. I was afraid that blinking would let something move. The hallway light flickered. The tapping started again. Not slow this time. Faster. Urgent. Like something inside the walls was waking up. My phone buzzed again, and again, and again. I forced myself to look. Message after message. Just one sentence repeated. Come home. But I was already here. The room felt like it was breathing around me, the walls expanding and contracting with each heartbeat. The closet door behind me creaked slightly wider, though I hadn't touched it. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My body made the decision before my mind did. I ran. I didn't look behind me. I didn't listen for footsteps. I ran through the hall, past the couch, past the lavender blanket, past the front door, and stopped. Because the front door was unlocked and slightly open. Someone had already entered, but no one had left. If the door is open, would you run out or hide inside? The door was slightly open, just enough to show a thin slice of the hallway outside. I didn't know whether it had been open from the inside or the outside, and somehow both possibilities felt equally terrifying. I stood there with my hand hovering near the doorknob, but not touching it yet because I realized if I grabbed it, I'd know whether it was warm, and I didn't want to know if someone had just been holding it. The air behind me felt heavy, not loud, just full, like the apartment was aware of me, like the walls were waiting to see what I would do. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I had the feeling that if I turned around, I would see something I was never meant to understand. Or worse, something I already knew. Then I saw it. My reflection in the round metal of the doorknob. Not a clear reflection, but enough. I hadn't seen myself once since arriving. Without mirrors, I hadn't realized how much of myself had been slipping. But the person looking back at me didn't look like who I became after I left him. She looked like who I was when I was still with him. Softer, smaller, quieter. Eyes wide, but dimmer. As if the apartment had been reshaping me. Not through force, but through familiarity. Through memory. Through the slow comfort of old patterns returning like vines. Something shifted in the bedroom. A soft sound. A breath, maybe. Or just the house settling under the weight of everything unsaid. I didn't look. I didn't call out. I didn't ask if anyone was there because I already knew. Whether he was physically inside the apartment or not didn't change anything. His presence was in every object. The chipped mug, the notes, the clothes in the closet, the photo angled toward the bed, the tapping in the walls. His love had never been gentle. It had been a slow shaping, a possession disguised as devotion, a cage disguised as home. My fingers finally closed around the doorknob. Cold, not warm. Somehow that was worse, because it meant there was more than one way to be present. I opened the door, inch by inch. The hallway outside looked empty, quiet, almost peaceful. The kind of peaceful that makes you feel like something is just out of sight. I stepped out. Not fast, not slow. Just one step, then another. The apartment behind me stayed silent. No footsteps followed. No voice called my name. No hand reached out. It didn't need to. It knew where I was. It knew who I had been. It believed I would come back. That was the worst part, the certainty. I didn't close the door. I left it slightly open, the same way I found it. Because I knew, deep down, the apartment wasn't waiting for me to return. It was waiting for me to remember. And memory doesn't need doors. I walked down the hallway without looking back. But I felt with absolute clarity that the moment I did look back, if I ever did, he would be standing there in the doorway, not smiling, not threatening, just waiting, patient, certain. Because love in his language was never something you leave. It was something you return to, whether you choose to or not. And the part of me that frightened me most was the part that understood exactly what he meant. If you were me, would you close the door behind you or leave it open forever?